Yalla.
All right, I am live here with a very special man, Mr. Aryeh Harris, and very excited. He's
Yes, sir.
hailing from the land of Israel, and we have a very exciting show today. We're going to be discussing with Aryeh um, what he recently wrote a book all about self healing, self help. And one of the things that he reached out to me that really caught my eye that I wanted to talk to him about was um, what he has called, I think by what's his name, that rabbi that you mentioned, the M&Ms, masturbation
Oh,
and
Gedalia.
marijuana. Yeah, Gedalia Fenster.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
coined he coined masturbation and M&Ms, masturbation and marijuana, what he calls the M&Ms, and
M&Ms.
the the subject
Don't want M&Ms.
really intrigues me because I before I was religious, obviously, M&Ms are not bad. M&Ms are sold in every grocery store. Um, M&Ms are kosher, and masturbation is a healthy thing, and marijuana is a healthy thing, and what you realize is that
Right.
it's not. It really isn't. And
Right.
if Judaism says that it's not, then it's not. So, Aryeh, thank you for joining, and I'm excited to talk about this. And yeah, why don't you just hop in and introduce yourself and tell us, you know, why this subject is, why you're passionate about this, and yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for hosting me, and appreciate this opportunity. And to all the guys and gals listening out there, this is a community conversation, and I really am grateful for you guys for tuning in. And it's an important topic, So this is something I'm excited to talk about and start breaking out into the space more. I think it's becoming more regular as we are progressing. There's people who are making this dialogue more a little bit more mainstream out there. There's guys like Ellie Nash out there talking about it. Gedalia Fenster's talking about it. Um, and it's a super important conversation. So I'm really pumped to get into it. And yeah, man, there's so much that we can go into, and I think we mentioned a little bit before. What we'll do is we'll go into a little bit of our story, both my story and Beryl's story, in regards to this. And that's going to be, I think, a really relatable way. And we're not going to spend too much time on the story, but the story is there to kind of make connections, bridge gaps, and help people kind of associate with it better and hear the information so the information sticks, right? So we're going to share our stories a little bit, and then we're going to
So
get into some content. I've got some content here that we're going to rock. And so,
so go for it. What
Beryl,
is
do you
your?
want to share a little bit?
I mean, like I mentioned in the beginning, it was just I was raised in a non-religious way, and in the non-religious world, pornography and masturbation is something that is completely normal. It's encouraged in a certain
Yeah,
sense. It's
and
labeled as
healthy.
and
Right,
healthy.
right.
And I actually remember when I was becoming more religious, I said to my rabbi, when I came across when I learned that you're not allowed to watch pornography and you're not allowed to masturbate. I remember I said, you know what? Maybe I'm going to leave this whole Judaism thing alone. I mean, I'm not ready to give that up just yet. And to
Right.
this day, by the way, a lot of times when I speak in conferences, people will ask me, what is the biggest thing that you miss from your non-religious life? And I tell them pornography and masturbation. And
That's an honest answer.
it's true. It's true. I mean, wow, it's so much fun,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know? And
Yeah.
but when I really started to learn more and more about it and what it is and what it does and what it means, and when you really understand what sexuality is, the whole world wants to pervert sexuality today. When you really understand what
Yes.
sexuality is, that it's the highest form of of
Yeah.
of intimacy. It's the highest form of life. That's where life is created. And to bring that down
Yes.
into the lowest, most disgusting place, um,
Right.
it's a turnoff, quite frankly. And weed, the same thing. Weed, I actually realized it was bad. I smoked every single day from age 13 to 20 years old. Um, every single day, I was
Hmm.
high more waking hours than I was sober.
Didn't
And I
know
really,
that.
what's that?
Totally. Totally. No, yeah, that's like modus operandi.
Yeah, and I really tried to quit so many ways and so many times. That was obvious to me that it was bad. I had bad relationships with my family. I had to hang around bad people. I had to
Hmm.
hang around drug dealers. I had to lie to people. My eyes were
Right.
always bloodshot. I was always it was just no good. And I tried to quit for a long time, and only once I
Yeah.
became more religious and I had God to rely on. Only then was I able to kick that habit. And today I'm, thank God, I'm about 14
Hmm.
years um sober, clean. I haven't touched weed in
Yeah.
14 years. So that's
Yes,
my
sir. Dude,
story.
that's big, man.
Thank you. That's my story. What's yours?
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. And like I said, honest, I mean it. I mean it. It's a real honest answer, especially to give that like at a public address or something, to say, I miss porn. I mean, that's that's it's an honest answer. We're talking about, ethics and morals. And when the world tells you that not this is actually great for you, and they tell it to you on both ends, marijuana and masturbation and porn, they tell it to you, they're saying both of these things are great, they're medicinal, so to to go along with that narrative, it's a very powerful one. And then when we shift ourselves, I'm also Baal Tshuva, so a quick like story on myself. um, was raised, the name Lucian comes from my non-Jewish side. So my father is not Jewish, my mother is, and they divorced when I was young. Went with my mom, and we were raised religious, like Balas. She was a Balas Tshuva, and my father was not Jewish, so we had like kind of split lives. And then we, grew up kind of in this like split system. And then I walked away from Judaism after a while. Whatever, I can't deal with this. It's enough for me. And went off exploring and explored Buddhism and etc. And purpose-based entrepreneurship and the hippies and all these things, and really looked really hard. Psychedelics. I really looked very hard into all of these areas of life
Were any of them
until I came
fun?
back to Judaism. Thank God.
Was the psychedelics fun?
Psychedelics,
Yeah.
yeah, they were fun. They were super helpful for me in my growth process.
Is that like mushrooms? Is that
They
what
were
you're talking about?
my mushrooms, anything I guess you could call psychoactive. Um, Mushrooms, LSD or acid, DMT. I smoked DMT once, which is a
Anyways, we don't
crazy
have to go.
story.
We
That
don't have
like
to go. We don't have to go all into it. Let's keep on going.
we don't have to go down the rabbit hole. Yeah. So, anyways, um, after a while, I come back to Judaism, thank God, and it's that was a really eye-opening experience, obviously, in so many ways, where you come to this place and they're like, hey, actually, we value monogamy. That's like a really high value for us, one of the highest values for us. And so, what do you do with that when you're coming from a place that is like the whole narrative is not that thing, right? That's challenging. That takes a lot of time to filter that through. So, so that was definitely, there's definitely, an avoda for every single person who has to interact. Even if you were FFB, if you're from birth, you have to interact with the secular world on a day-to-day basis. I don't care who you are. And you have to interact with the values and the culture that they're talking about. And that has a lot of influence. It has a lot of influence on us as as men and women. And that is it's a powerful influence. So
Hmm.
so all of us have to address that and fight that in various ways. Even again, like I said, even if you're from birth and you weren't off in the world and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, you're engaged with the world, the marketing and business and this and that and all of the world out there. That's a really that's a big It's a big topic to transition your mind from saying this is a fantastic, it's medicinal for me, to saying like, whoa, I have to literally reverse and flip upside down and pull inside out my entire way of thinking about life. So
Mm.
that happened, and it takes a couple of years. I'll say this like right away. It took me years to really get to a place where it was like I was really I was ahead of it. I was above it. I was like I had it.
What's the it?
And that's
What does
normal.
that
It's
mean?
totally normal.
What's the it? You say years to get above it. What does that? What's the it?
Above it, above these patterns, above just masturbating or
Marijuana.
going on porn or going on or smoking just because you're bored or because it's a habit or all these things. You develop such a relationship to these things that it's really challenging to rewire your system. So that's the job that we're doing here. So yeah, thank God, here we are.
So
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 that's yeah,
you know, before I get into the advice that you have to people to kick the M&Ms, marijuana, masturbation, um,
yeah,
I'll tell you why I feel that it's important that people should kick it. First of all, God doesn't like it. That's number one. Okay, it
right,
says that it's worse than murder. That's how a person creates life, through being
yes,
intimate. That's the seed of life. So when you spill the seed of life, it says that it's tantamount to murder. Okay, marijuana, it's
right,
obvious why people shouldn't do it, because you're literally you're blinding yourself. You're numbing your mind. You're numbing yourself. But
yes,
in terms of the and I once saw a funny video on the internet. It was just the guy. I don't think it's for any religious reason or whatever. He was just like a secular guy, and he made this video and it went absolutely viral. He says nobody goes and watches pornography and does his business in private and does all the gross things on the internet, and then when he's finished he pumps himself, stands up, he starts beating on his chest and says, I'm going to go take over the world. Rah! No, he curls up
right,
into a little
right,
ball and he
right.
says, what the hell did I just watch? What the hell did I just do?
Every time,
What the f
every
is wrong
time,
with me?
right, every
So
single time.
what would you um what would your advice be to people that are looking to kick the M&Ms?
Yeah, for sure. Um, okay, sure. So I've got like a little system here that I've developed over the last couple of years. And this is kind of a high level version specific to this topic, I would say. Um, as Beryl mentioned in the beginning, I wrote a book. It's not published yet, but if you go follow me, you'll see it comes out in the coming year. And it's more about, in general, all of this stuff, whether it's this or that or this, or you're just repairing yourself, trauma, etc. And so that can be slightly different framework, depends sometimes. But specifically for this topic, we're going to run through like a 7-step thing. Okay. And we're going to talk about it obviously from like a 30,000-foot view, and we'll get into it a little bit, but we can't get into everything obviously today. So there's so many people out there who are dealing with this right now, and every person's situation is a unique one. That being said, there's principles that you can follow, right? It's just like business. If you go into business, there's principles to business. I don't care what business you're in. I don't care what the market looks like, et cetera, et cetera. There are principles of business, and then there is your business that lives within those principles. And so we'll talk about basically the overall principles, and then when you go to apply that, that's where working with people one-on-one or in a group or having some sort of setting around you, that's where that comes into play, because you need to know how to figure that out and apply it to your life.
Hmm.
So I'll start with two things. So two things. The first, I'm gonna not go into a lot, okay? But I'm just gonna state it, and it's gonna get addressed as we go through the rest of the steps. But the first thing is that the map of man, like the human consciousness, is basically comprised into 6 different things, more or less. You have an experience of life,
Hmm.
and in that experience, you are experiencing it in 6 ways, okay? Here's the 6 ways. 1 is physical, 2 is emotional, 3 is mental, 4 is spiritual, 5 relational, 6 financial. Okay, so those are the 6 ways. All right, now as you experience any given thing in your life, it impacts, it makes a dent, it causes ripples in that pond of the human experience. So you're experiencing it physically, you're experiencing it emotionally, you're experiencing it mentally, you're experiencing it spiritually, you're experiencing it relationally, and you're experiencing that thing financially. So these are things that you don't get to leave or get away from, or you know, they're with you, they're a part of your DNA. So I just want to state that from the onset, that all of that is affected by this area. Like Beryl said, it's, you know, it's this area that's essentially radioactive. It's radioactive. If you spill seed on the ground, think of that as like radioactive nuclear waste, you know, like that seed could create a human being.
Wow.
And that now it's like radioactive, you know, like pulsating neon energy. And it's just shot out into the world. And
sounds
you know,
gross.
think of Chernobyl. Terrible, you know.
Chernobyl in your living room.
Chernobyl in your yeah. So you know, that's what that is. So that affects you in all of those ways. It affects you physically. People have terrible, and there's tons of Chassidus on this. Rabbi Nachman talks about it tons. The relationship with Shmirat Brit and your finances. This is a really big topic for all the money people out there. Shmirat Brit, do Shmirat Brit, and Gedalia Fencer talks about this all the time. Shmirat Brit equals finances. If you want to make more money, go out and guard yourself. Create a vessel that is pure, that is tahor. Okay. If you want to go and have a better relationship, guard yourself. Create a vessel that is tahor. Create a vessel that is pure. Right. It affects those things directly. So that's just the preface to what we're going to get into. And these steps, as we go through these steps, it affects all of those parts of self. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. This is great. This is really good stuff, man.
Okay. Awesome. So that is kind of an overview on that. And there's tons of things that we can get into on that. In my book, I actually go into a lot of that type of stuff, really specifically. So, but here, you're not going to be able to read my handwriting. It's terrible. But there's 7 steps here, okay, just so that you can see it. I'm going to read it out. I'm going to give you a just overview really quick so we kind of know what we're going through, okay? And these are kind of, some of them are 2 parts. So first step, we have admission and outside help, okay? And by the way, just another preface, you guys are gonna know these things. Like it's not like this new chiddush. There's this new idea in the world that is for the first time you're ever gonna hear. Okay, this is something that likely you'll have heard before in different ways, or you'll heard parts of it before in different ways. And now we're gonna consolidate it and create it into something ideally as streamlined as possible in order to facilitate this process for you. Okay, so and obviously there's overlap with the 12 steps. It's the same world, right? So the first thing is admission and outside help. Okay, so you have to admit this to yourself. You have to get outside help. Number 2 is conviction. You need conviction.
Can I share?
What was that?
As you're going through these,
Yeah,
I would like to actually share real world examples. I have never seen your list, so maybe there's going to be ones that I have not done myself. But I want to tell the audience what that looked like in my personal life, going through the step, because not only have I not smoked marijuana in 14 years. I hate saying marijuana. I'm not like an old hip, non-hip grandfather.
Marijuana.
It's weed, bro. Okay, it's dope. It's dope. All right.
It's dope.
You got the
ganj.
Weed. You got right. You got the stuff. It's been
beautiful. I like that. I love that idea.
It's been a lot of time since I did the other M, thank God, which is watching pornography, which is probably the most harmful thing for a person to do. It's so harmful for a person's life, his wife, his family, his A compass.
Yes.
If maybe people watching this don't remember what compasses are, but if you have a compass and you put a magnet on that compass, the compass goes like crazy. Pornography is like a magnet to the soul. It it,
Mm.
it, it makes it
Mm.
absolute. It
Nice.
screws up the soul completely. You want to
I
destroy your
love
soul.
that.
You want to suck your soul and kill it. Watch a woman being paid $1,000 to sell her soul in front of 10 million people. It's a very good
No,
way to sell your soul. Okay, so let's go. Number one. What was your number one step?
it's a great analogy. Yeah. Okay. So first one is admission, to admit it, to declare this thing in your
So
life, and
two
then
years
outside help. Okay.
2 years ago, on your number one, 2 years ago, I was struggling terribly with wanting to watch stuff online, and like I'm not an if I would watch 15 minutes a month, that was like, whoa, a big month. Okay. Some people, if they watch 15 minutes a day, it's a
Yeah.
small day. For me, 15 minutes a month was enough to destroy my soul.
Right.
And I remember reaching out to this great website called
Right.
guardyoureyes.com. I'm sure you're familiar with it. GYE.
Guard your
Yeah.
eyes. Yeah. Holding it
And
down. Yeah.
and 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 I tried all of their little exercises and all of their little things. Nothing really worked until I spoke one on one to one of their counselors, and he helped me.
Yeah.
He helped walk me through it. And I said to him, this is what really stuck with me. I said to him, he's like, "But why do you do it?" I'm like, and he was a former addict, a pornography addict.
Yeah.
And he said, "Why do you do it?" I said, "Because it's just so good. The first 10 minutes is just it's so good." And he's like, "Yeah, but the next 17 hours isn't." He's like, "Take it from an addict." Um, so he would
Oh.
sit in front of his computer for 17 hours straight. Okay. That's
Oh my
and I
God.
realized I don't ever want to be like that. And he gave me some real tools to get out of it. So you're number one. I've applied that. Let's keep on going.
Yeah. Okay, great. So again, I'm just going to run through these and then we'll dig into
Sure,
them. So number
sure,
one
sure,
is
sure.
admission and outside help. Number two, conviction. You need conviction and you need a system. Okay. And we'll get into that again, but running through this really quickly. Cleaning up. Number three, cleaning up your physical space. Okay. Your house, your physical space, your environment, like where you are in space. Okay. Number four, working on your body. Okay. Working on your physical body. All right. Number five, crying out to Hashem, crying out to God. Okay. Being on your knees, crying out to Hashem. Number six, deal with your trauma, processing, processing what you've been through, your life experience, all of the things that you have grown up with, and et cetera, et cetera. And then number seven is to be gentle with yourself.
Mm.
Okay, so
But not too
gentle with
gentle, if you
yourself
know
is
what I mean. If you know what I mean.
not too. Well,
Come on, we have to have a little fun. Come on now. Come on now.
yeah, gotta make it light here, bro. Yeah. So okay, so let's dig into it. So admission and getting outside help. So this is super crucial, and so many people get caught up on that first roadblock, which is you have to admit it to three people really, or three things. First, you need to admit it to yourself. So many people aren't able to admit it to themselves. They can't like deal with it that they have a problem. This applies to every other. This is like a very classic, AA or SA, Sex Anonymous or whatever it might be. It's like you have to admit your problem before. That's the first thing that you have to do, to recognize that you actually have a problem. So that is number one. You need to admit it to yourself. Okay. Number two is then admitting it to people who are close to you. And I'm going to put an asterisk on this, which is not just people who are close to you, not just people who love you, because that's not always good. It's not always helpful, but people who want to see you grow, right? In Guard Your Eyes or in AA or in SA, they have sponsors, and sponsors are these people. They're there. They want to see you grow. It's like a coach. They're going to be there and they're going to show up and they're going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So it's people in your life who are close to you that love you and are concerned about you, And I would say that this is really in the beginning, in the early phase, in the early stage of like coming into this space is admitting it to somebody who's there, supports you, loves you, wants to see you grow, and is really there as a backbone for you in terms of support. So it doesn't mean that you run around and start telling like your close people, all of your close people, your best friends, or all of these things. Like that might not be relevant. So sometimes admitting it to close people, which is a very important step because you need accountability, like Beryl, you mentioned, the, actually working with somebody on this is like the biggest thing. Like you can do a lot of work. You can do a lot of work on this by yourself. But having people outside of you that are there for you, that is so crucial. And it comes down to that in so many areas of life. Business, you're in the business, you're in the machine. And sometimes it's so hard to think about just what the next step is, even if it's right in front of you, because you can't think straight. So you have a business coach, and the business coach walks you through it. And he's just like, hey, bro, it's right there. You know this, you got this, you got it, and then he's able to create some clarity for you in your life. And then the third is God. So admitting this to God, and this ties back into step number 5, which is getting on your knees and crying out to Hashem. And I see that we have some non-Jewish listeners here as well. Hashem just means God in Hebrew. But crying out to Hashem, and admitting that to Hashem, and coming to a place where you're like Hashem, I need to change something here, and I really mean that, and I know I have a problem, and that is a huge thing, and a massive distinction here, which will like make or break somebody right now, right here, is you have a problem. You are not the problem. You are not the problem. You have a problem. And so, and that, again, all of these things, like I'm going to say, they apply to so many areas of life. If you want to go into business, if you want to be like an entrepreneur, like your business has a problem, you are not the problem. So you go and you fix and you work on the problem in the business, but that's not you. That's inherent with building anything. And that's very hard for entrepreneurs because their entire identity is enwrapped in their company and their business. And that's a really intense thing. This is a huge element in Judaism and Hasidus. This is like an identification with the soul, a higher identification, meaning your body is going to die. It's going to rot away, and that's okay. You are not your problem. You are higher than your problem. You are bigger than your problem. And underneath the problem is somebody in there. It's a soul that is always going to be there and is always going to prosper. And your job is to just reveal it. That's all the job. That's the whole of Oda. It's just to reveal the light already in the soul. So that's why my book is called Cultivate. Cultivate. You might have seen it in Beryl's promotion, the podcast that I have called Cultivate. Why? Because cultivate, the intention of the word cultivate means that you are going and cultivating something that is already growing. The job, the avoda of somebody who's cultivating something, your soul, let's say, yourself, let's say, is to, or your child. The best example is your child. Sometimes this is hard to think about for yourself. It's easier to think about with your child. Okay, think about it for your child. Your child is a living, growing thing. You don't do that. You don't. Your child's doing that.
I love that.
You're not involved with that. You're involved with just making space. All you're doing is you're just cultivating space. You're just making sure nothing gets in, nothing gets around. He's good. He's got water. He's trimmed up. He's looking nice. He's looking sweet. That's your job. Okay. So it's the same thing with your soul. It's the same thing with yourself. Your job is to cultivate yourself by making a space for yourself. Okay. And we can go into that more. But that plays right into basically, getting outside help, which is having people around you, because in this case, you are the tree. So sometimes it's hard to cultivate yourself because you are the tree. It's easier to do it sometimes when it's your child because it's not you. You're just seeing it. So you're like, it's different from me. There's a separation, right? But when it's yourself, there's no separation. So
how did
identifying with a higher self.
Did you read all this somewhere? Is this something that you sort of came up with through trial and error? Is this where are you coming up with all this?
This is a mixture of both. I mean, it's something that I've been obsessed with growth for my entire life. I've been a meshuggah for growth my entire life. I would get into arguments with my mom when I was in high school. I would get mad at her for bringing ice cream into the house because I was a freak about nutrition. You know what I mean? And she was like,
Wow.
"Dude, relax." Like, and I was, so it's something that I just always I've put my head in this place, and then thank God, he brings us the understanding, and so I just put all these pieces together. Like, I'm very connected to nature. I don't know if you guys can hear. Maybe you can hear. I don't know if you can hear. There's chickens in the background. I don't know if you can hear those guys,
No,
but
you can't.
I'm
You
very
can't
like
hear.
I'm a very connected to nature. Hopefully you can't hear them too loud. And I've worked on farms my whole life, and I just see that this is there's the connection with nature, with God. It's such a beautiful connection, and this is something super important also for all the Jews out there listening to this in Chutz
By the way,
La'aretz.
to all the
This is a
Muslims
big
out
Indian
there,
of
because
big
we
Indian.
have Osama Helmi over here. He's listening. He says
Yeah,
Muslim first
I
time
see
here.
that.
So
Yeah,
far, the parallels between our teachings is very similar, and I appreciate hearing what we always teach in a different light. Keep up the
yes,
good work, fellas. Thank you, Osama.
that's awesome. Awesome, Osama. Thank you for hopping in. That's super cool. Um, Yeah, and you know what? It's super relevant. Like, the Arab cultures are very, very similar to Jewish culture in many ways, and that's super cool. And not to exclude anybody else listening right now, because I know there's tons of people listening, and
Christians are
that's
also
awesome. My
Christians are
point though
also
is
cool, and Buddhists are also relatively cool. No,
Christians
I'm
are
just,
also cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna run through the list right now, guys. You guys are
yeah.
all cool. Um, and the Indian here, the idea here is that for Jewish people, this is relevant for Jewish people because it's connected to Eretz Yisrael, which is the land of Israel, and Geula, and the redemption and the coming back to Eretz Yisrael, and our prospering and our flourishing as an as a nation. Now, in this time in life, after 2,000 years of gullus, after 2,000 years of exile, we're now back in Eretz Yisrael, back in the land of Israel, and that is a incredibly relevant thing. It's the most relevant thing to happen in the last 2,000 years, because at, because especially for the Jewish people, obviously, but even for the world, it's an incredibly relevant thing. In regards to the Jewish people, this is a topic. Eretz Yisrael represents the earth. It represents your connection to the earth. It represents practicality. It's goof. Eretz Yisrael is goof, right? Goof means body. So Eretz Yisrael represents the body of Israel, meaning the physical home, the homeland. And that's where we go. That's where we live. That's where we reside. And that is something that we were disconnected from for a very long time. Do you know what it means to be disconnected from your body? It means that you are severed from an entire system in your operating system. Okay. So remember what I said in the beginning, the map of man. Okay. Map of man consists of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, relational, financial, right? If you are going through that and you are missing out on physical, which is the anchor, it's the base. And that affects the emotional, and it affects financial, because you have no place to stand your ground. You have no place to create a home in. You have no place to build a business and not be afraid that you're going to have to run out of the country, like has happened in so many places across the world. It's a coming back to our body. And so practically, like for our conversation, what that means is that a lot of the healing that we are going through right now in the world is a physical healing. So there's a physical healing that has to happen in your body. We're going to get to that later on in here, but that is a super important process that has to happen. So I just went on a long tangent because you asked
Yeah.
me
So
about like how
so
I thought about this
let's
stuff.
let's
But
bring
it's
it
all
back.
connected,
Okay.
anyways.
Let's give people some real
Yeah,
practical tools, and we have about 10 minutes left here. So let's bring it back to some real practical tools. There's real people who are really suffering
great.
with this real problem of pornography and
Yep.
marijuana addiction. Okay. I think the number
Yeah.
one issue
Totally.
is that
Totally.
people
Okay.
don't
So
believe
here's
that it's people don't believe that it's an issue. So
Yeah,
what
yeah, totally. It's
real
an issue. So
practical
we've definitely
advice?
covered that point. Yeah. So the next six points here are very practical.
Let's assume everybody's bought in, okay? Because if they've listened this long, they've been listening to us for, let's
Yeah,
say,
exactly.
they've been listening to us for almost 30 minutes. The how to kick masturbation and marijuana, that drew them in. So if you're listening to this right now, it means that
Right.
um you're bought into the fact that, okay, it's not a good thing. So now, with that
Right.
knowledge of the listener, give them real practical tools the next time that they're walking in their room and they have that urge and they're alone. What can they practically do to stay away from that?
For sure. Okay, so these next 6 steps address all of that, and it's super practical. Okay, so I'm going to run through these really quickly, and they're all really relevant. So, and connected to outside help, what we talked about is accountability. So accountability is super important, and you need that when you're going through something like this. So one of the biggest things that I do, I work as a coach. This is what I do. I help people deal with this stuff in their life. So when people, one of the best functions that I do with people is that when they're in a hard situation, they call me and they just say, hey dude, I'm not, this is bad, I'm not in a good place right now. And that requires a certain level of trust and a certain level of like, they're willing to do, like, that's a kind of a muscle that they have to build a little bit. Because they can just hide away from that if they want to, but somebody who really wants to grow, that's one of the best things, is that there's people there in your life who are on your team who are looking to, cover your back. So when you are going through something, you call somebody up, you just say, it's a 2-minute conversation, and you just say, hey man, I'm really in this right now. And you're like, that's good, thank you for calling, that's great, let's get through this, what can you do to break this space, change your space, change your state, go outside, take a cold shower, go and run around the block, go get some sunlight, go do a workout, go do, what can we do, journal about it, be grateful, talk to Hashem, talk to God, like what can we do that's going to break this space. So accountability is super huge for that. Okay, you need to know what this means down the road. Okay, so having conviction means that you know how this plays out. Okay, if you never work on this, if you never touch this area of your life, or if you never even do deep work on yourself, it's not like wishy, it's not like hoping for the, it's not like, oh, I really hope that they're going to make it. It's more like physics. Okay, if you don't do X, it's going to result in Y. Okay, so if you don't work on yourself, it's going to result in a bad marriage. Okay, it doesn't matter how much you guys love each other or how great you both are, that's just how it is. So and it's not good or not bad. So, but you need to play that out, because that gives you conviction. If you say, what does this look like 5 years down the road? Do I want to get divorced? Think about that. Those are hard questions. I mean, let's get real here, guys. You want to answer the hard question? Let's talk about the hard things. You want to get divorced? There's a more than 50%, 60%, I don't know what the number is, 50% divorce rate in the country. That is embarrassing. Like, where did that come from?
What's the connection
between, do that?
What's the connection between divorce and pornography, for those who may not see the connection?
Well, there's no commitment. I mean, marriage is a big commitment, and and it's not a commitment once. That's the biggest mistake. Marriage is a commitment over and over and over again. So we go into marriage, and you are making a commitment that is there forever. Porn, masturbation, you're abandoning that commitment. You're going somewhere else. No matter what you think, no matter what oh no, I'm not actually with them, It's a deep, deep, deep issue. It's a deep sensitivity that the women are sensitive to, and maybe they're not being vocal about it, but they hate it. And it's ruining your relationship if that's what you're doing. So you need to have a certain conviction, like play it out. Like every year on Tisha B'Av, I think about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, and I think about divorce. That's what I think about. That's what connects me to the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, is in our destruction in Gullus and exile is divorce. Like, it's so terrible. It's a terrible thing. So play that out and think about what that looks like. That's going to give you conviction. It's going to turn you somewhere. If you have a kid, you want to share the kid every other weekend? I mean, I know this is hard to hear. I know this is real talk, but like, for real, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
So
I guess
that's
people don't really realize. I mean, just in a very practical sense, I think it's very important to bring things down to just reality, and not hyperboles, which is if a man has access to thousands of women who are better looking than his wife, and they're able to do anything that they want to that woman on the internet, and as soon as they're done with her, they just
oh,
click X. That is,
it's
I
terrible.
understand why men want pornography, because
Of course, and it's, you know what, guys, it's getting worse and worse. Okay, it's not going to get any better. The AI that they're producing nowadays, have you guys seen what they can do with AI? It's insane. Okay, it's going to get crazier. Okay, so that's not going to get any better. You're right.
and 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 I understand why men want pornography, because it's so easy to click X on a woman on the internet. And if you get into that habit, all you want to do is click X on your wife when you're getting into a fight with her, like you did the other woman on the internet. So it makes sense.
That's right.
So pornography is kryptonite for a marriage. So let's keep on going.
Yes,
We have
correct.
about 5 minutes left here. Let's go brass tacks. How the people could
Okay.
stop.
All
How the
right.
people could stay away. Go
We're going to
for it.
run through this. 5 minutes is totally not enough time, but we're going to get through this. Okay. So now the next thing you have conviction. Now you're going to need a system, because conviction alone isn't going to get you there. So you need a system. That's where accountability comes into play. That's where putting yourself in the right place comes into play. That's where putting yourself in the right jobs, in the right communities, around the right people comes into play. You need systems in your life that are going to be there for you. Like, what happens when you get up in the morning? Do you have a community that can be accountable for you if you are not getting up in the morning? You know, that you're showing up to every day. And if you're not there, then they're like, hey, bro, where are you at? You know, then they care about you. They want to see you there. You need systems in your life. Okay. And obviously, there's more to say on that. We're going to run through it right now. Number 3, cleaning up your house. Now we're going to start talking about processing and getting into the what is there, what is stored, and how we move the trash out. Move the trash out. Just like you have to take the trash out in your kitchen, you have to take, like, actually, it's not even an analogy. You literally just have to take out the trash from your physical house. Okay. I know it
Nice.
sounds crazy. That's actually the answer. Okay. So, for example, like if you have a whole, like if you're a hoarder, let's say, right? And you have an attic just full of just garbage. You know what that does for you? It's a psychic energy, and not psychic like woo woo energy. You store things there. So when you go and you look at old pictures, you have a feeling, right? You have a feeling. You go and you look at these old pictures, you get caught up in it. You're like, wow, you know, when you have, that snow globe was from my 4th grade class trip. Oh my gosh, that's energy that you're attaching into your space. You need to clean and process that energy out, because it bogs you down. So that's a really, really important part. You need to clean your physical space, like your house. Okay. The next one that we get to, and that's a really deep process, by the way, really deep, like deeper than you might think. The next one is your body. Okay, doing this with your body, and this is kind of connected to what I talked to with, like, coming back to Eretz Yisrael. We're returning to the body. We're returning to healing. Being a religious Jew, or a religious Christian, or a religious Muslim, or just a good person out there in the world, you can't be one and not the other. Like, you can't be a nice guy and successful and have money and be totally abusing your body, because that just doesn't add up. Like, something's wrong in the system. So it needs to all work together. So going and getting, doing things like getting, you have to be obviously sensitive and appropriate to all of this stuff. Like in Judaism, we separate men and women. Like, we don't engage men and women together. So if any of these body work things, I never do body work with a woman. Obviously, like, that totally goes against this topic, right? That's the boundary, that we don't do that. So I get massages, I get acupuncture done, I do stretching, I do yoga, I work out, I do jujitsu, I do all of that stuff almost every day, all week, every month. Like that is what I do, because we are storing so many things in our body, just like our physical house. Okay. A lot of really cool books on this. Obviously, one of the biggest ones out there is called The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. A lot of people know about that one. Really great one. And he was on Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson's podcast like months ago, maybe a year ago or something, talking about this topic. It was really good podcast. Okay. That's going to help you get through this stuff. That addresses the deeper stuff. That addresses like kind of like where things are coming from, like what's going on. Like, why do you run? Like, why do you run to porn? Why do you run to this? Why do you run to weed? You know, a lot of it, basically everybody is coming from a place of like, I want to get love. I want to feel safe. I want to experience a good feeling. Right. And that comes from, generally speaking, like a place of trauma, you know what I mean? Or a place of, you know, which everybody has. It doesn't mean that you have to have seen like a million people die to have gone through trauma. Like, it could be that your father didn't give you enough love when you were a child that you wanted, and that was it. Like, and so you went to porn to get the love, you know, that's where I got the love there. So then it turns into a bad thing. And dissociation is what you want to start working on the underneath side. So, okay, cry out to Hashem. There's no way you're going to do this without God, without a bigger power in your life. Okay. That is that's a tenet in this. It just won't work without it. Okay. You have to connect to something higher than you and bigger than you, and then see a vision of you in a better place. Envision you where you're going to be. Envision you who you're going to be. Having that healthy connection, being spiritual, connecting to the essence of life, seeing plants grow and looking at the koach, looking at the energy of that and watching your child grow and looking at him and just saying like, wow, like, how are you even doing this? Like, you do it by yourself. I don't even do this. Like, you look at his eyes, you see the color, you see the personality. You're like, where'd that personality come from? That's his soul. His soul is there. And you're trying to connect to that place. And so we're coming into this place trying to connect to Hashem and envisioning ourselves in a place where we are able to connect to Hashem. Okay. Number 6 is going to be dealing with your trauma. Okay. So dealing with your trauma means basically more directly in terms of like classic psychotherapy. So that's when you do the work on the body. Essentially, this is kind of how it works. Okay. You do the work on the body, and then it kind of releases it, and you're able to kind of process it in other ways. So dealing with your trauma, processing it, and being able to do that in a bunch of different ways. Again, I would recommend going and reading The Body Keeps the Score. And you can do that with psychotherapy, but only really after you do that in your physical space. If you just do psychotherapy and you just go talk to a shrink and you sit down and you're like, I have a problem and I don't know why, and you just run through it mentally, it doesn't really get you very far. You need to go and literally like change yourself. And then that like releases stuff. And now you can come into a new space and you can work through that stuff and process it and put it in compartments and throw all that garbage out and move on with your life. So that's a really big thing. Last point, guys, is you gotta be, I'm not gonna say the other word. I'm gonna say you gotta be kind to yourself. Okay. You gotta really be kind to yourself along this journey, because it's not a journey that happens over. It doesn't fix itself overnight. It doesn't go away with one thing. It's not one pill. It's not one action. It's not one event. It's not one conversation. You know, people listening to this right now, this is a part of that journey. And people who are seeking to get better in this thing, typically it's going to take, especially if they've been doing it over a decade already, it's not going to be a day. Think about that. You're reversing energy. You're reversing momentum. You have a momentum sliding downhill super hard. You think it's going to change in one day. You got to redirect that energy. That takes a lot of work. So it could be a year, 2 years, 3 years for you to really get to a place where you're like, I don't do that stuff anymore at all. And in that 3-year journey, it looks like you going up and down. And you're like, wow, I had a 60-day streak and then I fell. And now I had a 30-day streak and then I fell. But then I hit like this 4-month streak and then I fell. And that was way better from before. Before I was doing like, every day. So you really have to be gentle and careful and just kind with yourself along the way. And one of the biggest things, this helped me a lot. This helped me a lot with this, guys. This is a huge takeaway. Really, really simple tool, but just really good. Sadiq falls 7 times, gets up 8, right? That means when you fall, and Rabbi Nachman talks about this a lot, when you fall, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the thing inside of you, the voice in your head that wants to make you feel terrible, he makes you fall, but that's not where he gets you. He gets you when you're depressed afterwards. He gets you when you don't get up out of bed afterwards. He gets you when you can't talk to anybody and you feel like you're worthless afterwards. That's where he gets you. And then that's called momentum, and that's called a downward loop. That is a feedback mechanism. It's a negative feedback mechanism, and you can create a positive feedback mechanism for yourself. So when you fall in life, and it will happen when you're trying to improve yourself like this, will happen. You just get up. You don't even give it energy. You just like, I fell, I get up. Like just reaction. Like you fall, get up, and there's not even anything to do. There's not even a discussion there. Okay. It takes a little bit to get it. You don't get it right away. It's kind of like when you're in the gym and you're like learning a new technique, or like, I do jujitsu and martial arts. So you learn a new technique, and then you like go and you try to implement it the first couple times. It doesn't really work. You got to drill it. You got to go through it. And then when you get to a place where you're good with it, you're going to be able to pull it out and rock it, and be able to, like, you'll fall, and then you're just going to stand up and you'll just be like, boom, that's it. Boom, boom. And you can just step back from it, and you don't engage with the negative feelings. And so that's it, guys. I mean, that's a crash course right now.
That was awesome. That was really good.
Valuable for you. And
that was really, really good stuff, man. Thank you for coming on. And guys, if anybody's looking for more in-depth to work with Aryeh, he does private coaching. So he mentioned that there's a person that one of the steps is that you have to have sort of a sponsor or somebody that could coach you and help you through these things. Aryeh does personal private coaching. I vouch for him 100%. The guy's an absolute rock star. Aryeh, how could people reach you?
They can go to my website. It is aycoaching.org. Let me see. It's Shomer.
And I'll put that in the comment section.
aycoaching.org. Yeah.
Go ahead.
aycoaching.org/Shomer Habrit. Okay, it'll be in the link.
And I'll put that in the description and the comment section of this video, so you guys could go check that out. Watch out for his book. It's coming out. It's coming in hot. It's going to be awesome. And if I could just offer one practical piece of advice, I tried everything to stop, to quit. And the thing that helped me the most was making a promise to God that if I did watch something online that I wasn't supposed to watch, I had to pay a in Hebrew we call it a kanas. I had to pay a ticket, a ticket.
Punishment.
How do you say kanas? I had to pay an amount.
Kanas,
I had to pay an amount to
a fine.
I had to pay a fine. I had to pay a fine to a charitable institution of my choice, of $5,000. And I cannot tell you how many times that has saved me, because it's an expensive, and it's an expensive ride. So the expense is worth less than the fun. So that would be, I guess, my biggest tip. But look out for Aryeh's book. Follow him on LinkedIn. Go ahead.
3 things here, by the way, just to finish up. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
3 things here to finish up. Just 3 quick points. Spiritually speaking, I know that, Beryl, you're a big tzedakah guy, obviously, right? This is you made a film about this. This is a big deal for you. Giving tzedakah is a huge repair for this. Okay, this is actually a really amazing tikkun. If you want a good fix, giving tzedakah, it really helps with Shomer Habrit. Okay, it does in terms of spirituality. Think about it. You're giving something to somebody with intention, right? That's what spilling seed is. You're giving something to somebody with intention. If you can do that with tzedakah, and money is very connected to spirituality and to seed. So you give money. There's a lot of Rebbe Nachman Torah on this. You give money to somebody, to an organization that you support, etc. That is a very direct tikkun for this type of thing, practically and spiritually. Say tikkun aklali, say tehillim, and go to the mikveh. You know, these things are really gonna help you
Beautiful,
guys.
beautiful.
Okay,
Guys,
Beryl, thank you
Arya
so much. This has
Arya
been awesome.
Harris,
This has been awesome.
awesome to have you on. Go follow him on LinkedIn. That's where you could find him. And God bless everybody. Be well. Thank you for joining.
Amen. Thank you.